Hi, everybody. I'm Joseph Del Pesco, International Director at KADIST. Thank you for joining us for the third Ketchup Session with Pratchaya Phinthong and Tuan Andrew Nguyen, hosted by Zoe Butt. This event is co-presented with the Factory Contemporary Art Center in Vietnam. Ketchup Sessions are a chance for us to check in with artists like Tuan and Pratchaya that we've followed for years but haven't had a chance to see lately. We've asked them to tell us a bit about what they're thinking about and working on now, rather than inviting them to present a standard artist talk. To keep things loose and conversational, we won't read their exhibition history or long list of accomplishments, but instead we'll post some background in the chat area of the Zoom at the beginning of each presentation. Also in the Zoom chat, we welcome you to post any questions you may have for Tuan or Pratchaya. My colleague Jordan will moderate the Q&A section at the very end. This event is being live captioned. You can click the live transcript button at the bottom of your Zoom window if you'd like to turn that on. And you may have noticed we're also streaming to YouTube, where the conversation will be archived in case you'd like to see any part of it later. You can also share that YouTube link with anyone you'd like to invite to join the conversation. It's easier than sharing your Zoom link. Really thrilled to get started here. So I just want to quickly introduce Zoe Butt, who is the artistic director of the Factory in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam. She has a history with KADIST that dates back to 2012, when she organized an exhibition called Poetic Politic in our San Francisco venue. It feels like ages ago. She's also a KADIST collection advisor and one of the most elegant and sensitive thinkers about contemporary art I know. So thank you, Zoe, for hosting the conversation today. I'll pass it to you.
Thank you, Joseph. And thank you to KADIST for the opportunity to think about two marvelous artists who have been in my midst for quite some time. One quite closely, Tuan Andrew Nguyen, is someone I've worked with for years, particularly with running San Art, an artist-run space that we used to work on together. And Pratchaya, I'm yet to do something physically, but I've been following your work for years. But it's really lovely to have the two of you, or us, in a conversation, both of us, all of us, under lockdown. Because I see the two of you as quite similar in some respects, but then also quite different in your approach. Both of you are artists who challenge particular systems of society. Pratchaya, particularly in terms of materialistic consumption and the assumptions we have behind how currency is valued and equated. And Tuan, in terms of adherence to how cultural customs, systems of cultural customs produce spiritual or psychic stereotypes that we often don't contemplate in our daily lives. And so both of your practices really aim to draw out our assumptions, and I've always appreciated that. Similarly, I'm very attracted to how both of you operate with strong social conscience. You have a particular emotional attachment, I feel, to how histories are written, circulated, even purchased, dare I say. And I find that that means both of you have in your respective work dealt with numerous different communities, some that are quite underprivileged or completely historically overlooked. And I find that you both have very different approaches, one quite conceptual with Pratchaya, one with very moving image focused. But both of you do have quite a history of thinking of history as something malleable and using art as a mechanism to talk about that. Both of you have had your own individual experiences with dilemmas of politics of display, be that be inside an institutional format, or Tuan, the live lived political world of showing work. And then both of you have strong histories of, as I've just mentioned, collaboration. And it's on that vein that I was particularly wanting to kind of have this conversation, because I know that the two of you have been talking about UXOs, unexploded ordnance, which is explosive weapons, bombs, shells, grenades, landmines, naval mines, cluster munitions that do not explode when they're employed and still pose a risk of detonation. And sometimes this occurs many decades after they were used or discarded. I know that both of you are interested in the region of Laos and Vietnam, and to that end, I think it's useful for the people in the room to understand that the United States Air Force dropped on Indochina between 64 and 73, a total of 6,162,000 tons of bombs and other ordnance. Indeed, it was far beyond what was dropped in World War II and the Korean War. In that extent, I know that both of you have, and you will share with us today, some current work that each of you are continuing to mine in Laos and for Pratchaya and for Tuan in Vietnam. But I think it's useful to just add here that in Laos today, there are 50,000 who have been killed or injured by US bombs. 98% of them are civilians. And an estimated 30% of those bombs dropped failed to explode on impact. And it's continuing also to have ramifications also in Vietnam. So to that extent, I look forward to chats after the little presentations from each of you. But Pratchaya, do you want to share something from your project to introduce it? Thank you.
Yeah. I visited Ban Napier village and talked to the family who live alongside the bomb area, where they produce spoon from parts of those bombs recovered by MAG, which is short of Mines Advisory Group, which mostly women who work, coordinate, and extract the UXO bombies, clearing landmines from the underneath the Earth's surface. They're trying to reach those bombs before the children. During the walk around the Plains of Jar area, I also met a group of MAG team that just came back from work. They told me they were able to remove and disarm of 400 kilo ammunition per day. I was walking up the hills where I found the bomb crater, but I'm told not to cross further because the area is unsafe since the MAG was not yet to mark the zone. This is an organic system where the products are made within the context of place, content, and resources. I think this is a place where the idea could contribute to forming productivities and by reevaluating what is there in the past to improve contemporary life. On the one hand, I began to work with the villagers for several projects. The idea is to bring many production that revolve around the bomb scrap to support the local communities who live unsafely and could not extend their land for agriculture because of the UXO. But on the other hand, I also would challenge my practice as an artist, a producer, by asking to what extent is the arts production could possibly translate to the audience. How could the collisions unfold different world correlation? What lies in the reflection and its own realities? Thank you. That's the short descriptions of the project. So I will leave it here, and then we come back to talk about, you know, the details of things. And yeah.
Thank you, Pratchaya. Tuan, you want to share?
Yeah, can you see me? Hi, Zoe, it's nice to be in conversation with you.
I know.
And you too, Pratchaya. Zoe and I have been
have a coffee, man.
Zoe and I have been trying to get a Zoom together for weeks now. We're in a really serious kind of lockdown here in Vietnam. And it's good to kind of be in conversation with people outside of my my house. Although I like talking to my family from time to time. Thank you, Pratchaya, and also thank you to the KADIST for opening up a space like this for us to kind of chill out together and share ideas. You know, I think I will not be as poetic as Pratchaya ever. So I'm going to start with some facts and kind of zoom out a little bit. This is a map. It's one of the many bombing maps of this area that I found in my research. And as for those who aren't quite familiar, this area consists of Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. I wish I had a cursor here on screen, but I actually don't. In the middle of Vietnam, drawn in a yellow line, is the DMZ. This is the demilitarized zone that split the country in half. So North Vietnam to the top, of course, and South Vietnam to the bottom of this line. And most of the bombing happens in the central region. And there's a lot of overlap with Laos and with Cambodia as well. Let me see another map here to kind of zoom in. A lot of bombings happened in Laos because of the Ho Chi Minh Trail, which brought supplies and food chain and military supplies and troops from the north to the south. And the Ho Chi Minh Trail travels into Laos, of course, to avoid the US military, and it travels through Laos and parts of Cambodia to get into the south. And as you can see, the central region here, which is the region where I'm focusing on a lot of my work, is in right below that line in a city called Quang Tri. So just so we can kind of contextualize it a little bit, Zoe had had kind of presented some numbers. There's a lot of numbers associated with UXO from a lot of the conversations that I've had with specialists on the ground here, former Vietnam vets who are now located in Vietnam, working and, you know, running NGOs to kind of get rid of the country of UXO, say that this number tends to be the number agreed upon. And of course it's an estimate, but 15 million tons of ordnance was used. And this is considering all the aerial bombings, all the projectiles from the Navy and mines and cluster munitions used on the ground. But 10% of all of these ordinances did not detonate when they were supposed to. So if you can kind of imagine, I know these large numbers are become kind of really abstract and it's hard to imagine, but that's 1.5 million tons of ordnance remaining underground. Just in Vietnam alone, between 70,000 to 105,000 have been injured since the end of the war, since peacetime started, since 1975, and approximately 40,000 deaths have occurred. And of course, you know, there's a lot of deaths and injuries that happen in the countryside that aren't recorded. So, and then just to get another number here into perspective, the number of US military casualties, active duty soldiers that were injured or died during the war, was 58,000. So between peacetime deaths with UXO and, you know, wartime deaths with active military soldiers, the numbers are looking quite similar, and that's kind of mind-blowing. So I'm going to skip this because I know I don't have much time, and I also want to kind of open it to conversation. I'm going to skip these. This is an image of, I think it's an image of Laos after a bombing. I don't know how long after the bombing this was taken. There are a lot of bomb ponds left in the area. Many artists have kind of made work about these kind of vestiges of war. Pratchaya also mentioned bomb ponds. In Vietnam, for the most part, the land has kind of regrown. So you don't see the remnants of war as obvious as this image taken in Laos. I'm going to play this video real quick. This is a video from the Mines Advisory Group here in Vietnam, who we got a chance to work with. This is some of the images that they've recorded on location. This is a controlled detonation. So as you can see, the landscape is there's no obvious visible vestiges of war until it's activated. So the Propeller Group, a collective in which I'm a part of, used some of this footage from the Mines Advisory Group in Vietnam for a billboard project in Los Angeles called Sunset Spectacular. This is an image of the billboard here, kind of at night, with a frame of one of our videos. These are images taken by the curator, Diana Nowie, from her iPhone as she was driving past the billboard at night. And this is on Sunset Boulevard in West Hollywood. And I think the video is still playing. The videos, there's about 13 different videos playing off of this new media space, this advertising space, this kind of structure built for advertising, in which Diana has curated several kind of artistic videos to kind of intervene in this space. And Diana and I were interested in bringing these images of present day, images of current explosions, these remnants of war, and placing them in the heart of Hollywood on this structure designated for advertising, where we all know that Hollywood is where the production of spectacularized war memory and a kind of US military bravado is kind of manufactured. It's the heart of this other kind of production of memory that takes place, which I found is interesting. So this is a quote by Viet Thanh Nguyen, who that kind of informs my work a lot. Let me just read it real quick. All wars are fought twice, the first time on the battlefield and the second time in memory. And I'm particularly drawn to this quote. I mean, I think Anh Viet's scholarship on memory informs my practice a lot, but this quote specifically, there's a kind of precision in which it speaks of the kind of unending trauma caused by war and how this trauma is forever being manipulated through the production of memory, like what Hollywood does. So these are just images of, UXO. These are images that I shot. People in Quang Chi live with bomb material every day. This is, yeah. But I find it fascinating how they've taken these vestiges of war and reconfigured them into usable objects. Like this is a couple of canoes. I think this is in Laos or Cambodia. These bombshells are used as stilts for a house to kind of lift it off the ground. In January, earlier this year, a few months ago, between lockdowns, I was able to get a chance to follow the Mines Advisory Group based here in Vietnam on a mission. And I got a commission from TBA 21 that allowed me a little bit of kind of resources to kind of begin my research in this on this topic. And this is a 16-inch 50 caliber projectile shot from the US Navy's 7th Fleet. It was found kind of half buried underground in this hillside farmland in Quang Chi. And so what we did was we followed the process of disposing of this bomb. What I ended up with was a 2-channel video, just to kind of this first iteration of kind of understanding this dilemma, right? So it becomes a 2-channel video where on the right screen is the process we follow of the disposal of this bomb, which takes a tremendous amount of labor and a tremendous amount of time. Human bodies kind of digging and pulling and pushing this bomb to a safe place and then detonating it. On the left is US military archive that I found, a lot of training videos, and shots of films shot on the US Navy's 7th Fleet that shows the speed at which these projectiles were launched and the plentitude of the projectiles being launched. You can launch like one ton projectile every minute or so. It's some crazy statistic like that. But in the video, the bomb becomes this main character, this projectile, the 16-inch projectile becomes the main character. And because it's been embedded in this land, in this context for almost 50 years, it gets influenced by the beliefs in animism and reincarnation by this context. And it starts to have these reflections on its own existence and its own karma. So this idea of reincarnation begins to play a kind of really important aspect in how I think of healing a land and psychological healing. And I think there's a lot of overlap between how I'm thinking about it and how Pratchaya thinks about it too. And it's also quite fascinating how the material itself is malleable. So there are many reconfigurations of it that are possible. Yeah, maybe I just kind of end it there. This film is being shown on TBA 21's website, so if anybody's interested, please check it out. And I'll kind of conclude it there for now, and then we can open it up for conversation.
Thanks, Tuan. Yeah, I was just thinking actually, Pratchaya, your project, you're working with the particular village in Laos, and you're getting these villagers to produce these mirrors, if you like. And it's in the transport of that mirror to a site of privilege. And you're asking these visitors to engage their own reflection in what has become a kind of normalized violence. We are aestheticizing ourselves, unknowing that what we're holding is an object of violence. And it's sort of interesting, Tuan's just raising how by this bomb being immersed in the ground for 50 years, it is absorbing the site, it is absorbing the memory of that site and starting to take on the cultural psyche of that place. So I guess a question is about how important to you is it that your artwork becomes these kinds of objects of testimony in a way, in that one who purchases and one who experiences immersively, be that a video image. I mean, how important is it that these sites become relayed inside the display? For example, when you're doing an exhibition with these mirrored works, do you bring in the realities of Laos? How do you bring in the realities of Laos? Or is that not important? Similarly for you, Tuan, in taking this project to LA, how do you think the politics of Hollywood engaged seriously with this idea that this is present day reality in Vietnam?
Yeah, thank you. So start with me is I think actually the work has been the whole project has been made for the first time exhibition at SF MoMA several years past. with the invitation from the curator Unjiju. So that's where Tuan's also in the show. So it was a title, Soft Power. So somehow like I heard the story of this from a younger friends who went to the Planet Jar, the area where it's bombed. So they found that during the way there, they stopped by the restaurant, and then they were having soup, and the spoon was made of quite different way, and they found that this is they asked the owner, so the lounge, and they've been making this and then use this spoon and fork, and also chopstick and all sort of things. And I heard the stories that I just kind of wanting to see, what has happened there. So what is it about? It's really close to me. Because I was born in Ubon Ratchathani. The city was northeastern of Thailand, which is near the border of Laos. And I can speak also, like Isan language, where, I can speak to Laos. We understand each other, but somehow I never heard of this, particular area where they produce spoon or utensil where, like made of bomb scrap. So we just made a trip there, and then, yeah, it's opened up my understanding, many aspects, many things that what we see Laos basically in our projection without having, loaded history to, political, whatever aspect to cover it. And a part of that, we just, simply we see that quite reserved, green, and, beautiful Laos landscape, and we always sharing, nice hospitalities with Laos. And then, we didn't know that. It's not that we didn't know, but it's not appeal, like obvious that we are really concerned about what is underneath. And yeah, I just found these two, this couple, really young couple who was melting this and made spoon. And I just asked them if if I could do something related to what they are producing, but producing something else. Where I was thinking, what if this particular bomb has been somehow reformed and then get into the new possession of form, and then appear again in the US, in the museum shop, and then becoming something else. And like the idea of the incarnation, somehow, you reborn and then being something. Trying to give some new meaning to what was it, and then what was what had been already understood, and trying to find what is new meaning important to us. And what I can also somehow push it the limit of, So like I always like to work with the people. I try to extend my understanding of practicing myself with the non-realities production house or place that I really work. Everybody working. So I I fall into this kind of, what if we can produce, and this is the place, that can produce something, and this is the materials where everybody using it. But from like from the perspective of the Western, this is if you cast it in the materials like spoon and fork, it's been sort of contaminated, really ridiculous in the way, you know, in the projection. But I mean, somehow that there must be the way that art could give a new form, or thinking could reformulate it, or could try to go underneath this particular thing. And then, you know, it's also the challenge. I always say challenge is because I don't know what next step could be. So what I did was I just went in the house where this couple are, and then asking them, and then I just draw the well, along with the cut log, you know, the tree, the log. So they have it for burning, you know, the stove, for making melting that. So I just asked them, and then to make a sketch of the round of the, you know, the shape of it. And he just started right away to make the first sample, and it was like melting what with I don't know how many material was just put together and melt, and then put into, you know, the mold, and then he just opened up, and it was just some kind of, from what I see, it was really, of course, it's just like something not shining at the beginning, but I kind of penetrated, you know, my visual to that, to see that what if it's, you know, polished and it's become something else. And then I sent to, you know, I brought back to my friends, and then, yeah, trying to make it shiny, trying to make it mirror just by sanding it. And then we success to do that with hundred or multiple times of sand, you know, incredible way of working, making this into again into to the reflection. I mean, to answer you that, of course, there's something inside there. So it has been, I don't know, buried, melt, has been made and shipped and loaded, and then fly over, and then bomb and kills, and, you know. So we are dealing with the contemporary life, who are, you know, facing this kind of really really sad situation, along with what we're having now with the pandemic. So we just, I mean, from what I think it's we are dealing a lot with how we can cope with the situation, that somehow this war legacy or the material has been carried into, I mean, I wasn't born yet, so no, the war was over. I mean, somehow, you know, it's just a certain kind of I mean, the length of approach that I have with this, and then try to work, you know, to see if it's possible for working together with people and improving something.
Yeah, I've always been attracted to how art can be a space to which memories can be recalled, reassessed, rewritten, and emotionally reattached. I find that we're in such a media saturated society that we are somewhat distanced, full of apathy towards trauma, violence, anxiety. And I think that, at least in the projects, I wish I could hold one of your silver, you know, shiny surfaces, because I think it's quite a powerful moment to hold something in your hand that is incredibly beautiful, reflecting yourself, and yet it could have killed a number of people. And that's a very jarring moment to realize that you have the power to hold this, but then you also have the power to own it. I think that's another conversation to have. What about you, Tuan? In terms of, I mean, over your practice, you've been quite particular sometimes with where you choose to show your work, particularly because of the subject matter involved. I mean, Hollywood is quite a space to be showing that particular piece. Your mic is off, Dee.
Sorry. I think limited access to the various channels out there is something that artists have to contend with, right? you know, so we do the best we can, and if we get access to certain spaces in collaboration with, you know, our friends and curators and different institutions, we kind of try the best we can to exploit those channels for the short amount of time that we're given. Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say, sorry, just to bring it back to materiality real quick, that when we were at SF MoMA, Pratchaya, the objects are quite beautiful, and you know, being able to kind of tangibly hold one is something quite remarkable. But I also really appreciate, and this is something that I've seen in Pratchaya's practice for a long time now, his collaborations with the community, because what Pratchaya was doing was selling these objects, these hand-polished metal pieces, in the museum gift shop. And the proceeds went back to the village that was doing these extractions, right? I mean, here in Vietnam, for so long after the war, there was such a limited amount of resources available to people, especially in the countryside. So a lot of people proactively went and searched for UXO and learned how to disengage these bombs and missiles so that they can sell scrap metal to produce income for their families. A lot that caused a lot of catastrophe, of course. But even to this day, people are still buying and selling scrap metal from bombs, as you can see from some of my images. And yeah, and I've been working with a scrapyard there in Quang who do this on a daily basis. They're buying and selling scrap metal, and these are bombshells, even now, like 50 years after the end of the war. So the legacy of war, you know, I keep saying that once a war begins, it really never ends. Like, and the more we see, you know, places that have gone through war, we start to realize how true that is. Wars do not really ever end.
No, and indeed, much of the language on the streets in Saigon right now is recalling war rhetoric, no? You know, the military is currently in place and taking control. So, you know, and that memory is just so tangible for so many in Vietnam still.
Yeah, yeah. And, you know, I was talking to a friend of mine, and we were just looking up, you know, numbers and COVID deaths. And there have been so many headlines comparing COVID deaths in the US with the amount of people who died in the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
Even to this day, you know, like it's so crazy how the relics of war exist and are permeated throughout culture, not just kind of embedded in the landscape.
So did you have any reaction when you showed the work in LA? Like, was there any question as to whether what you were showing was fictional?
You know, I've been kind of here. I haven't been able to travel. Everything was done remotely. You know, it's a public art project. Yeah.
It's a good question. Take it carefully.
Yeah, because I mean, I know that you both have done, you know, you both mentioned MAG, the Mines Advisory Group, and, you know, like I was looking at their funding streams, and I mean, it must be quite it's such an issue of governmental guilt in many ways when you see how much money is being placed to try and address the issue. And I think when it comes to working with these and collaborating with these entities, I think artists also have very delicate relationships to dance between when it comes to wanting to reveal how these, it's shame, it's guilt, but it's also a necessity. I mean, in Vietnam, we're still dealing with the histories of Agent Orange also. So I also wanted to kind of ask about, you know, the agency of the artist. I mean, both of you were born in Thailand and Vietnam, but then you were educated in the West. And then you've come back and both of you have taken on quite particular political, and I use that word in the sense of social responsibilities. You know, both of you have interacted with various topics concerned with consumption, and that is being in terms of economy and labor, but then also in terms of ideological, racial stereotypes. And I wondered, what do you two think of art in terms of writing histories? Do you ever consider your practices capable? Because I'm quite attracted to how many artists down here, their artwork stands in as the history textbooks for what we should be recalling and remembering. So I'm wondering, what is your relationship when you think about politics of display? How do you see your work really making sure it's reaching the audiences? Do you see yourself as working in that direction enough, or do you think it's something you need to work on more? Because I'm always conscious of, who are you actually speaking to with these very powerful pieces of research?
I'm first, Tuan.
Whatever you like.
I think I speak to myself first. So I just trying to knock myself down every day and night, thinking about, yeah, I have a problem with that consumptions and the way of which we live in, and you know how we are going to what art is for, and then you know all of this is really trouble me. You know, like I mean, I could leave the position as an artist, you know, maybe soon or never. So it's something, you know, like you just have to draw that the line yourself and try to pull the knot, and then you just can count it in the way that is it worth it to, you know, to making things. And somehow, I mean, it's been it's depend on what history of art or of in general are we part of, and still like people, I mean, we are writing and rewriting and trying to, you know, like opposing and defend many subjects that has been passed and has been, you know, this is the, I just fall into a really organic form of being as, you know, something that, you know, appears and disappear and reappears again with the power of what is called maybe the chance for doing art, and you know, for doing something that I would think this is this could be a tool, you know. So
Totally.
but I still have the problem with, you know, how I could manage the sales and how much it would, you know, it would go very well to how that money not going to push people into forests to, you know, to face the bomb, you know, and trying to make the work, you know. So all this is like when you do something, it must be something that has been really reactive, and I think this is somehow this organism that live quietly, but you have to make them transparency. So all these can be thought and can be somehow managed and try to balancing it. I mean, like right now, so I wanted to do something with the families, but also I want to travel. So of course we can, but this is raise kind of new way to, what if the body can't approach? How are we gonna do it? You know, how are we gonna do if we want to film, right? Tuan, so if we want to do something, how are we going to cope with this, and how long can be doing this? And I mean, yeah, all the question is really interesting. For, I mean, that's how I see it's practicing.
I mean, Tuan, you and I we've had many chats about the necessity for visual artists or artists, creative people in general, to connect to communities, and that there be spaces of engagement and conflict in understanding why we're doing what we're doing. You know, much of your Propeller group work was also media engaged, and then, you know, and your co-initiation of Sound Art was also about trying to raise community awareness. So, you know, when it comes to, you know, I'm aware of how much research you've done with various projects in the past, and a lot of it is on overlooked histories. I mean, you know, to what extent do you feel that you need to take further steps in ensuring that audiences really do see and hear your work outside of, say, the traditional artistic venues?
Wow, that's a big question, Zoe. I think it is a collaborative effort between the artist and the ecology of the art world.
Totally.
Right? To kind of
absolutely, and the ecology of the art world needs
distribute.
to get interdisciplinary, I think.
I think so too. But I think, you know, the work that I've done with curators is very collaborative, I feel, and an artist cannot do it alone. And without this partnership with curators and institutions and galleries, it's almost impossible, because what we do as artists is we kind of sit in a lab or in a community, and we take what we've learned, and and the things that we've gathered, but be it materially or narratively, and we kind of reconfigure it in ways that we see fit, or ways in which we think will benefit a community or benefit a kind of history. But to go beyond that requires the help and the assistance of a lot of entities. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think the necessity for our part of the world, particularly for the decolonizing societies across the world that are still dealing with the legacies of war and the objects that are still undetonated beneath the ground, I think these are where structures for the display and the mechanisms of producing art need to be slightly different to what we expect of the Western systems of display, in that we have to start real solid collaborations, for example, with MAG, where we're working on a long-term basis that isn't just an artistic project by project basis. But, you know, Pratchaya, you're working with this community and you're continuing to produce these metal mirrors, and the money is going back to supporting this community. I mean, I know of other artists across the whole of Asia that have done similarly in terms of supporting, like Amar Kanwar, for example. I mean, these are really, for me, big role models for thinking of how the power of art has the capacity to really set a different pace for how the next generation can recall what they can't find in their textbooks, or what they can't find in the official narratives of their respective nations. So, you know, in that regard, I really, hats off to the both of you. I really look forward to what I hope will be a new collaborative project, because I know that the two of you are talking about doing something together, no? On this particular topic of UXO.
Yeah, we are hoping to work on a project together. I personally have been really interested in kind of these collaborations that are happening between Southeast Asian artists.
Yeah.
And Pratchaya and I have been talking about some ideas.
Yeah, that's great.
I'm a global artist, Tuan.
Okay.
I love it. A global artist stuck under COVID at home in the studio.
Exactly. We just have to fight with the solitude.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. Yeah. So if anyone in this virtual room has any questions, do ping in with any levels of interest. In the meantime, though, I was wondering whether the two of you had, you know, UXO has another side to it that neither of you have mentioned, which is environmental degradation. I mean, the level of environmental degradation as a consequence of these, not only undetonated, I mean, undetonated bombs themselves give off certain toxins that settle into the land and become agricultural nightmares, no? I mean,
Yeah.
is this something that either of you are also interested in?
I probably wasn't really clear when I was doing my really quick presentation, trying to run through it to make time. But this idea of land is actually quite interesting for me. So much of the land is contaminated with UXO here in Vietnam and in Laos and Cambodia that so much of the land is rendered unsafe. So that blocks access to a lot of things like the ability to grow food, for instance. People can't build on that land. People can't, build structures, houses, schools, hospitals, and they can't get access to certain bodies of water because the land is so contaminated. A lot of the conversations that I've had with these NGOs here is that it might take another 100 years or so to get rid of all the UXO. But that's not even the conversation now. They're not even talking about being able to get rid of all the UXO because it seems so impossible. Right now, they're purely trying to educate the youth so that they are safe and that they don't, face the catastrophic results of dealing with UXO. Yeah, the land is contaminated, and I think you bring up a really good point. No one's really tested the toxicity of the land because of the UXO,
Right.
which is something interesting to think about.
That's surprising.
Yeah, but
Or not that I have found, but
yeah, but on the one hand, I was just fall into this story of, this is kind of the project I'm doing, the next step. So, a story of a guy who cutting the log, the tree in the forest, had found. He cut. In Laos, so in particular area. So when he uses the saw to cut, and then it's hit to something inside, so which is a bomb scrap. So the multiple areas has been already the piece of bomb went into the body of the tree. So we always care about ourselves basically, and then this is another thing that the tree that lived from 40 years, so has been kept this wound inside. So I think it's really, for me, it's really interesting to go to this forest and feel it, and try to understand living, such trees can, can embrace this. I don't know what was it, when they were small, or was already something inside, and then it's already been whole and made together. So I think, yeah, this is for the next research that I was thinking about. Of course, it's contaminated on the soil, and of course, something has been changed. But compared to what we're putting on the crops, that somehow produces from everywhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. No. Absolutely. I'm quite. For me, my own experiences of learning about histories has been through visual art, and it's been through making art with artists that I'm made aware of certain realities that you don't find in mainstream media, and you don't find being regularly discussed in dinner tables or friendship circles. And so for me, as a curator at least, I always am trying to think about how to make sure that these fantastic visual experiences that are emotionally, psychically effective, how can we reach more people so that it doesn't just get collapsed into this economy of the art world? And for me, that's something that's really important, particularly with the conversations the two of you are having, because they're so pertinent to ongoing calamities. Look what's happening in Afghanistan right now. Who's to know how this is all going to fall out? And northern Iraq is still dealing with issues of undetonated bombs. So what the calamities that you guys are drawing on are repetitively found globally. And so there's, I'm just sitting here thinking, what would an exhibition look like if we were to get together all of the artists who are pulling together these statistics and looking at how, because it's all over. I mean, I know there's many artists out there, so that could be an interesting project for the future to think about, and to really rally the, you know, government awareness of weaponry usage, you know.
Yeah.
I'm really quite you know, startled with just thinking and observing what's happening with Afghanistan right now, and how the Taliban are taking over US weaponry that's on site. It's scary. However, time seems to have flown. It's already an hour. Does anyone from the KADIST want to step in and tell us to shush?
Yeah, maybe we should wrap up in the next, 5 minutes or so. If you have any final thoughts or things to add in closing. But yeah, we haven't had any questions coming in just yet from the chat. So yeah, it's been incredibly interesting. I didn't realize at the start that there was such a connection in your thinking and research, and it's been astounding and much like the material, the kind of subject has been so kind of intense. I'm still kind of like making sense of it, but I think your point, Zoe, about how these subjects are very rich and very real, and I think we need art in some way to kind of help us see these things that are flowing through culture, but aren't necessarily maybe a flashpoint enough to get into the media, the sort of like glitz of the front page. And also just to kind of sustain some of these things that aren't just going to go away, right? They're going to persist. And so that's something that I'm trying to kind of make sense of right now, is just the way that, I mean, I already believe art is necessary, but the way that art is sort of functioning here in this way to kind of, it's almost like a repressed or forgotten part. I mean, it kind of returns to, memory keeps coming up, right? But it's like a collective memory. It's like, how do we remember together? How do we think about these things? So anyway, I'm just kind of like a bit processing all of it, obviously. I'm really grateful for all of your thoughts and the work. Very different approaches to kind of related material. So unless anyone has any questions or final points, I think we can kind of head into wrapping it up. It's been an absolute pleasure for myself. I mean, I'm here at midnight on the East Coast. Kind of go fall into bed here in a minute with my cats. But thank you so much, all of you, Tuan, Pratchaya, Zoe. You guys are the best. I really hope that things to get sorted out with the lockdown, and that we can all find ourselves in the same bar room, have a drink together before too long. I look forward to that.
Yeah.
And thank you, Sam and Jordan and everyone who helped organize this. And I hope to be in touch, guys. Take care.
Thank you all.
Bye.